Hi, this is Thekla Petridou. I'm a psychologist and an author from Cyprus, and I do specialize in love relationships and marriages. This is my channel on YouTube. My channel is mostly in Greek language, but recently I have started to release a video blog in English every Friday. Today's vlog is about why I specialized in love relationships. Last week, I answered an email from a gentleman who is currently undergoing psychotherapy after a breakup. He was asking how he could know if his psychotherapy is going well for him. And answering his email, I told him and I cautioned him that motivation for therapy should be about himself and not about making his ex coming back or making another person happy. He responded to my vlog with a private email in which I told him, and I'm doing it now, that I will prepare a vlog to explain to people who don't know me yet, haven't heard my life story, why I decided when I was a young psychologist to look into love relationships and the reasons we suffer from in our love life, why some people are not lucky in their love lives, why some people manage to have blissful and happy love relationships and some others don't. So in this video I will talk about myself. I'm a 44-year-old woman, currently unmarried. I'm married for the first time. I got married to my second husband last September. I have 2 adult children. My son is 20 years old and my daughter is almost 20. I was married very, very young. I was still a student when I got married, and I had my son just a month after I got my bachelor in psychology. I have always been an unhappy person ever since I remember myself. I'm not anymore. I'm happy. It's been some years since I'm happy, but I grew up as an unhappy child, as a problematic child, I would say. I had a melancholy in my face, or I had a mild depression throughout my childhood. This is partly due to genes, because depression runs in my family, and partly due to my upbringing. My parents are very strict. They are very educated people and very religious people. My father is a priest. My mother is an ancient Greek teacher. My father was also a scholar. He was teaching in secondary education. Being brought up in that household resulted in me being psychologically abused. Sometimes my father used to hit me, but most of the time psychological abuse came from my parents' opinions about life, opinions about love, opinions about God. There was a lot of religious fundamentalism in our house. I was not allowed to go to any parties. Growing up, I was not allowed to wear makeup. I was not allowed to wear pants, because pants are not for girls. I was not allowed to wear any modern clothes. I was going to church every week, not only every week, I would go daily sometimes. I used to be very religious when I was young. I tried to understand religion. I tried to become the best version of myself so as to become what Christ wanted from me, or what they taught me that Jesus Christ wanted from me, because we are Christians. I'm Greek, I'm Cypriot, and we are Greek Orthodox, and my father is also a priest. He's a priest in the Greek Orthodox Church. Anyway, growing up, I was not happy, and I was dreaming always, and I remember myself since the age of 5 years old dreaming that love would come and rescue me. Don't laugh at me. I was dreaming on a prince on a white horse since the age of 5 years old. And at the same time, I was feeling guilty because I was taught that love relationships are not allowed in Greek Orthodox Church outside of marriage, so you should be married in order to have a love relationship. Anyhow, when I was in high school, I fell in love with several of my co-students. I fell in love by myself in a very teenage way. They never knew, they never wanted me. I was just fantasizing about happiness that would come in love. When I will become in love, when somebody would love me back, I would be happy. I went to study in Greece. I studied in the university, in the Aristoteli University of Thessaloniki. I studied psychology. I was an excellent student. I was first of my class every year. And when I was studying, I became even more happy because I was growing up, because I had a lot of emotions inside me, conflicting emotions. I had guilt. I have the desire to be loved. I think I had sexual desires because I'm a human being, and so on and so on. On the third year of my studies, the father of my children flirted with me. And he wanted me. And he was handsome. And he still is handsome. That's why if you go on my Instagram page and see my children, they are very beautiful, very handsome. My son is very handsome and daughter is very beautiful. He was flirting with me. He wanted me. And I fell for him. I fell with my body, I fell with my heart, but not with my mind. At that age, at the age of 20 years old, I thought that if I have excitement, erotic excitement, and if somebody who is handsome and good looking and sweet is in love with me and he wants to be with me, that this was happiness. So I formed a relationship on the beginning of the third year at the university, and a month later my father came to visit me in Greece, and he decided that either I should discontinue the relationship or I would engage to that man and marry him. Mind that I was such a strict Orthodox that we haven't even exchanged a kiss, a French kiss, nothing. Anyway, I was enthusiastic. I was infatuated with my ex-husband at the time, so I pushed him as well to get engaged. We got engaged on the 13th of November in 1995, whereas the first time we went out together was on the 11th of October, a month prior. Imagine. We were engaged for 9 months and we got married on the 18th of August 1996. By the time we got married, my infatuation wore out, because infatuation goes only for a few months, okay, 3 months, 4 months at best, and I was not enthusiastic anymore, but I felt connected to that man. I really loved him as a peer. I was not in love with him anymore. I think I was never in love with him, even though he's a very lovable person and his current wife is very in love with him and they have a happy life together. We did not match with my ex-husband. We are very different people. I was always all about books, all about reading, all about writing, all about thinking. He was all about sports. He was an excellent football player. Now he's a physical therapist in a big, how you call it? He's a physical therapist for a football group that they play in Europe. Okay, and he was a professional football player at that time. He likes fast cars. He likes sports. He's very athletic. He likes to dress very modern. I don't. I'm more of a classic type of person, and we are different. So in our marriage, we were not happy. I was not happy. I was getting very angry, and I was very angry with God as well, and I was angry with myself as well, because I said, you have everything, My parents are well off. They built me a huge house, a villa in Cyprus. They sent both of us for postgrad studies in the UK, and then we returned back in a huge house with help. There was a lady helping us with the house chores. We had the big life, big house, big cars and everything, and we were a good-looking young couple. And we went to church every Sunday, and everybody was admiring us. Oh, look at the daughter of the priest, she's so successful, she's a young psychologist. I used to go on television even from that time, 20 years ago. I was on local television, not on national television that I am now. And everybody was jealous of us in a way, or envious, I don't know, but I was really deeply unhappy. And my ex-husband was also deeply unhappy because he was living in a country that he did not like. He's not Cypriot, my ex-husband is not Cypriot. He was living with a wife that was not of his taste, because the way I think, the way I talk, the way I live my life is very different to his. He was going into depression, I was going into anger fists. Many times I was angry, I was shouting. At that time, we also had 2 kids. I had my son a year after our marriage, our wedding. A year after our wedding, my son was born on the 13th of August of 1997, whereas we were married on the 18th of August 1996. I had my son, and on the 2nd of February 2000, I had my daughter. By the time I had my daughter, our relationship was not in a good place. Many fights. Usually I was the one starting the fights. I was very angry with him, but I shouldn't be angry with him because he is who he is, and I chose to marry him. He didn't do anything on purpose, he was just being himself. Anyway, long story short, on 13th of September 2001, I asked for a divorce. I finally asked for a divorce, and we split. And we took our divorce 2 years later. After divorcing my ex-husband, I was very naive. I thought that I was unhappy in my marriage because I was married with somebody that I wasn't really in love with. I was married with somebody that we didn't match, and that when I will get out of the marriage, then a real prince this time will come on a beige horse, not a white horse, because I was not a virgin anymore, and I will become happy. And then real life happened. And in 2001, at the age of 26, raising up 2 children, 2 very naughty children. I've written a book in English about the upbringing. I wrote a book in Greek about the difficult upbringing of my children. The name of the book is Happy Mother, Happy Children, which is not translated in English yet. But we hope that if these English vlogs spread and people watch my vlogs in English, then we will have the possibility through my editor to translate the books in English. So you cannot find this book in English, you can find it only in Greek with the title Happy Mother, Happy Children. Anyway, after the age of 26 that I got divorced, I realized what life really was, because I was brought up in a protected environment, in a very strict environment, but in a very protected environment. I told you that my parents were well off, they were strict, stuff like that. When I got divorced, I removed myself from the family setting. I took my 2 children and moved to Nicosia, which is the capital of my small country. I was living in Paphos, which is a small town, 2 hours away from Nicosia, but this is a very small island, so I went as far away as I could in the same country. And I started living the difficult life of a young single mother. During the first years after my divorce, I was naive, and I thought that by falling in love or by having a love relationship with somebody that I would really fall in love with, I will become happy. This was not the case. This was not the case. I fell in love, and it happened for men to fall in love with me, but we could not be happy together. at that time because I was not well within myself. I had a lot of spiritual growth to do. I was not happy within my skin. I was transitioning from being a religious girl to a free woman. I needed to have psychotherapy. I needed to work on myself, to work on my thoughts, to work on my belief system. I needed to get rid of all that guilt I was carrying around from my upbringing. And I needed to come to terms with myself. My situation, my genetic predisposition to depression and anxiety, and also I have inherited from my mother some traits in my personality that are difficult. I have some type of OCD, which I'm fighting, and now I'm in a good place. And I want to do everything perfect. I'm a perfectionist, which I'm working on it so as to slow it down. I'm also thinking very much. I have a lot of my brain is working all the time, was working all the time, so I had to slow down my brain to learn to live with my anxieties, to learn to live with my truths, my difficulties, to learn to love myself, to learn to accept myself for being fat, because I'm fat. I am 1.63 centimeter tall, and currently I weigh 89 kilos. I'm fat. I'm also diabetic. I didn't know at the time. I found out later, but I had to get to terms with that I have diabetes type 2, so I have to eat in a certain manner. I also had a lot of anger issues that I needed to work with, and I needed to find freedom within and happiness within. At the age of 36, I decided finally to take antidepressive therapy. I was going only for therapy before that, and my therapists that were psychologists, they were against taking antidepressive medication. I had panic attacks, I had generalized anxiety disorder, and I was refusing because my psychologists were advising me not to. I was refusing to take antidepressive medication. In 2006, we had in our family a very difficult time when my cousin, she was 13 at the time, was killed in a car accident. She was 18 years younger than me, and I was very close to her, and she was very close to me and my children. So after her death, I started having more psychosomatic symptoms. My anxiety rose up, my depression flared. I also had panic attacks, and at the age of 36, that was 5 years later, I finally decided to visit a psychiatrist and take antidepressant medication, SSRIs. SSRIs worked miracles in me. I took my SSRIs for a couple of years. I overcome depression, and at that time I realized that I was depressive all my life. There was a mild undergoing depression underneath my skin, which made me unhappy, and this was more important than me getting beaten up by my father or being brought up in a strict environment. Brain chemicals were making me unhappy. So after taking my therapy and working closely with my psychiatrist, I managed to find chemical balance. So at the age of 36, when I did that, I started loving myself again after I fought depression with the right tool, which is medication. I continued psychotherapy, but this time working truly on myself and not on my symptoms, because many people, they get carried away by their symptoms, even that might be panic attack symptoms, or depressive symptoms, or whatever, and they go to therapy and they work about symptoms and not the causes and the stuff that are really important to work on therapy. What you really need to work on therapy is on the view of yourself, to accept yourself, to accept your image, and to find a way to find happiness from within. Be able to stay still. And when we say still, I mean to be able right now that I'm talking to you, to sit here on this sofa, to watch on this camera and talk to you and be peaceful and enjoy it. When this came into my life, I was around 36, 37, 38 years old. My life changed completely. I started writing in a more productive manner, because before that it was very difficult for me to write. I managed to write only 2 books from the age of 30 until the age of 36. My writing went up, my TV show was growing, and I found myself to be hanging around myself and having fun with myself. And saying that, I don't mean something other than I started exercising regularly. I took up hiking, because hiking is what I love most, hiking in nature, of course. I started reading books. I started building relationships with people, friendships, because before treating my depression, it was very difficult for me to form relationships, to form friendships. I started forming friendships, and friendships with colleagues as well. I started to invest emotionally in friendships and in relationships with colleagues. This helped me very much to feel balance in my life. I structured my program so that in weekends I would have on Sunday and on Saturday something to do by myself or with the kids. I want to mention now that all the time that I was bringing my children up, I had in mind that I shouldn't be too much attached to the children and try to find happiness from my relationship with the children, because that would mean that we would come to a point of emotional incest, and I didn't want to have emotional incest with my kids. I wished my kids to grow up to be independent people, and that's what they are today. I'm very happy about them, that they didn't spend their childhood trying to make their mom happy. My mother used to tell me, why do you want to find happiness elsewhere? Find happiness in your kids. And I used to tell her, my kids are not mine. They don't belong to me. I gave birth to them. I have the responsibility to bring them up, but I do not have any right to suck their emotions out of them. This is what emotional incest is. The mother or the father trying to derive happiness from their children and not from themselves. So I started doing things. I started having hobbies for the first time in my life. Of course, I was dating. Of course, at that time when I was dating, I was more confident. So I went to many first dates that were only I went to meet somebody and I would say, no, we don't match, and I would stop. Whereas in the past, I would try even if somebody was not suitable for me. Okay? By the time I found myself, that's how I call it, I found myself after treating depression after the age of 36, I started saying no. I started being selective in my love life. It was not only to find somebody to love me. I didn't need somebody to love me anymore because I was loving myself. I desired to be in a real relationship with somebody who desires to be with me, somebody who doesn't need me, somebody I don't need, somebody that we desire to be together. At the age of 41, I met my current husband. When I met him, I was not looking for a boyfriend. I was not looking for a relationship. I was elsewhere. I said I was dating, but I thought at that time that I was too young to find my soulmate, or my partner in life, that this would happen around the age of 50. I met him, we spoke online, we spoke on Twitter. He saw me on a TV show. He mentioned me in his timeline in a comment. I answered back. Then he DM'd me. He sent a direct message to me. We started talking. We were talking for about 3 hours, texting. I like the fact that he's very humorous, that he's intelligent, that he's sharp, his mind is sharp, that he's kind. And what started as a frivolous conversation on Twitter ended up in me falling really in love, in finding the real love in my life. My husband Panayotis, he's 8 months older than me. He's my other half. We're together for 3 years and now and counting, 3 years and something. We got married last year, as I said. And I am finally in love, in a real relationship with the love of my life. And I have to tell you this. Being in a relationship with the love of your life is not happiness. It's not happiness. It's not making you happy. No. You get in a position where you have to live with somebody different than you, because no matter how matching a couple is, there are always differences. And you need to be there for 2 people, not only for 1 person. So does my husband as well. He has to bear up with me, because I told you I'm a difficult person. I have to bear up with him because he's also a difficult person. That's why we match. He's very intelligent. He's not somebody that you can get out of an argument easily. Okay, he likes to win arguments. I also like to win arguments. I think that this is obvious by the way I'm talking. Anyway, our relationship has not been a total bliss, not all the time. We've been together for 3 years and something. We still fight, and I think that we will fight for as long as we're together. We don't fight very regularly, once a month. We fight about silly things. At the end of the day, we forget. I was telling to him yesterday, you remember what we fought about last month? He said, I really don't remember. I remember the fight, but I don't remember the reason why we fought. Couples fight. Couples have differences. When you marry somebody, then you have to bear with their family, at least at the beginning. You understand? Or everybody who's watching me, that they come of a Mediterranean descent, either Greeks or Cypriots or Italians or Spanish, they understand what I mean, that you marry the family. Difficulties, we are a regenerated family, so we have children he has children from his previous marriage, I have children from my previous marriage. To tell the truth, the children have never been a problem. Our children, and I have to talk about my children. My children are very perceptive of my husband and of the new people coming into our family, and they're happy with it, because I brought them up this way, that we love people, we open our heart. And as I said earlier, my ex-husband, he got remarried in 2005. He has a very beautiful daughter, a second daughter, because the first daughter is the one we have together. She was born on the 9th of November 2009. 20th of November 2009. She looks a lot like my daughter. She's very beautiful. And she's a child that I have in my heart. They don't live in Cyprus, they live abroad. I haven't met her in person yet, but I spoke with the girl on Skype and on Viber. And my ex-husband is also happy. And he was happier earlier, before I became happy, because my ex-husband doesn't have any psychological problems as I had. He was just married to a weirdo, okay? And he got freed when she divorced him. Anyway, this is not self-loathing, this is just making fun with myself. Anyway, the reason, as a psychologist, that I specialized in love relationships, I wrote books in love relationships, which are not translated in English yet, but we hope that will be translated in the future. My first book, that was first published in 2005, It's about women and their love relationships, and I'm trying to break the stereotype that relationships are about luck. That if you are lucky, you have a good marriage or a good love relationship, and if you are unlucky, you don't. And I try to suggest the idea that it's all about how we are psychologically. My second book that published in 2011, it's about men, the strengths and vulnerabilities of men, and their love lives. My fourth book that was published in 2017 is the one I told you about, Happy Mother, Happy Children, which also has many chapters about divorce and how you deal with divorce and children and stuff. That was my third book. My fourth book came out last year in 2018, and the title is Should I Stay or Should I Go? It's about how we can decide if a love relationship is good for us or not. Should I stay or should I go? And the fifth book that is coming out on the 24th of October this year is about psychological war. All these books are in Greek. You cannot find them in English yet, and they are published by Psychologist publishing house in Greece. Anyway, the reason I specialized in love relationships, I read so many things in love relationships. I made so many workshops with couples. I wrote books about love relationships, and I had psychotherapeutic training in love relationships. Was this one, that I was not able to find happiness by myself, and I was having many difficulties in my love relationships, and I had to find out what's going on. My conclusion is that when you find love with yourself, when you fall in love with yourself in a healthy manner, and when you have a good relationship with yourself, then your love life by itself starts. And keep in mind, love relationships and a good love relationship does not bring happiness. It's a state. It's a state in which you still have to fight every day in order to be happy. So if we have depression, we get therapy. If we have issues, we get therapy. If we are in a good position with ourselves, if we are having a good relationship with ourselves, this is easier to find happiness in love relationships. I send you my love. My email is theklapetridou@yahoo.gr. I will write my email beneath. Anybody that listens to this video blog and would like to send an email to me in English so that I answer back with a video in English is welcome. Thank you for watching, and if you liked my video, you can subscribe to my channel.